Paul, I had a conversation. Well, actually, it was more like a meeting with my boss and the rest of the team. Actually, it was my boss's boss. And he said he really, I'm in sales and marketing.
I do, yeah.
He said, guys, when you're talking about what you do, I want you to stop using words like kind of, sort of, and well, that's the gist of it. And this made me perk up because, and he used an example, I think he was using an example of John Tory, mayor of Toronto, where John Tory was talking about something. I don't know if it was a COVID-related thing, but he said, and so that's sort of the gist of what we're trying to do. And he just said, that's so weak sounding. And I wanted to just chat a little bit about that because I've been paying a lot of attention recently in the last week to myself when I'm speaking, and I'm listening to other people speaking, and there are a lot of kind ofs, sort ofs, and gist of it's going on out there.
Oh, I'm sure we're all very guilty of using those words, myself included. I know I certainly use many of those words, and even a lot of the filler words like. I'm certainly guilty of that one.
Like is one I want to get rid of from my vocabulary too.
Yeah. And if you make that conscious effort to get rid of those words, man, I don't think you realize how much you use it until you try to make that effort to purge yourself of those sort of useless filler words. And yeah, your boss is absolutely correct, and especially in your role where, as you said, you're in sales, you got to be direct and to the point and not waffle about. Yeah, that's actually really good advice, not only in your job, but life in general. Like just your day-to-day interactions with other people, to not use those weak words just probably makes you sound a bit more confident, maybe a bit more authoritative.
Yep.
So that's good advice.
Well, and I did a little bit of research on this actually, because I didn't think this was something he just made up. I mean, he probably did notice it and mentioned it to us, but I did a little bit of research actually on this, and those words, not so much the ums and ahs and ands and sort and the and so, those typical kind of killer kind of. See, I just did it right there. Those typical filler words. I think these sort ofs and kind ofs are something different. And so I looked it up, and there actually is a name for this, and it's called a downtoner.
Okay, I've never heard of that before.
Nor had I.
At least, I haven't heard of that terminology, but is there a definition for it? Yeah,
so downtoner, I think of Downton Abbey when I read it first.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's downtoner or downtoner. Downtoner are words or phrases which reduce the force of another word or phrase. Downtoning is the opposite of emphasizing. The most common downtoners are a bit, a little bit, sort of, kind of.
Interesting to know, and especially the fact that you said it was the Toronto's mayor, John Tory, was caught using those waffling kind of words, especially given his particular position. Here he is doing news conferences trying to sell Torontonians on the reasons of the COVID lockdown and various restrictions. You got to be pretty firm on that. You got to be very confident in the information that you're portraying. So to come across by using kind of, and that's the gist of it, that's not good.
Okay, so that's the other thing. Now, there are sometimes uses for this that are well-meaning or well-intended. I managed to find an article from the New York Times back in 2014. The article is called "The Kind of Sort of Era." And this is actually something that's become very common recently. It's a trend that's been happening in our culture or in our way of speaking for quite a while now. So he uses an example. He says that he's calling them also hedge words. These are hedge words. They're meant to lessen a statement's force or meaning. He says, for instance, here's the University of Cambridge ecologist Peter Walsh speaking recently about Ebola. And this was a few years ago when Ebola was a big topic. He says, what's nasty about it is it sort of melts your blood vessels. So he's trying to, I guess, lessen the force of it. If it says what's nasty about it is it melts your blood vessels, maybe that's because it doesn't exactly do that. It's just more of a metaphorical thing. And here's Edward Snowden. I was trained as a spy in sort of the traditional sense of the word.
Yeah, but how often does the average person use sort of reduces? What is it? What was the comment you said about the blood vessels? The
sort of melts your blood vessels.
Yeah, sort of melts the blood vessels. Yeah, how often do you use that in a regular conversation? Yeah, sort of melts my blood vessels.
Well,
but to the average person, though, like when we're talking about that, it just in general, I think it's good advice to try to cut out those words, and not to say that there isn't certain situations in just regular, candid, everyday conversation where you're going to say sort of and that kind of thing. It's going to be part of your dialogue no matter what. But you're right. If you are on a business call, if depending on what it is that you do for your profession, you have to be confident. I'm in a position where I'm dealing with customers and, providing, I work in insurance risk control. The information that I portray, I have to be confident in what I advise our customers.
Yeah.
If you're waffling and if you're unsure and I think you can kind of do this, then it doesn't carry as much weight. You have to be aware of that depending on who your audience is. If you're just shooting the breeze with some friends, you know what? It's not that big of a deal.
Right. Yes.
But in a business environment, I think it's very important. It's good advice.
Yeah, this Gabriel Doyle guy here, PhD in linguistics, he says here that he believes that sort of is a deprecision device. The speaker is saying, don't think of this as being overly accurate. So if you say, I'm sort of looking into this research, or I'm sort of investigating this, it doesn't, maybe you're not committed to it in a way, like you're not committing the listener or the person you're talking to think that you're 100% doing it. But if that's the case, that could be a very negative effect you're having. If you say, yeah, I'm sort of looking into whether this is an area of the business we want to investigate as a potential place of revenue, well, that sounds pretty weak to me.
It does, yeah.
Just the last thing on this, the article's funny, and I'll include this in the show notes, but they talk about it. Imagine it was used in literature. So you think about Charles Dickens. It was sort of the best of times. It was sort of the worst of times. I came, I saw, I kind of conquered. I
Nice.
Sort of have a dream.
Yeah, a little bit of a dream. Yeah, maybe sometimes.
Okay, let's move on. You had a topic we chatted about a few days ago about COVID-19 and the administration of the vaccine. There are some groups being prioritized ahead of others. The first-line workers, I'm hearing, is one of the priorities. The long-term care workers, and then long-term care residents. So those that are maybe in the final stages of life, older, and in these long-term care facilities are being prioritized. But something was just in the news recently about a prison where the inmates or the convicts were being administered the vaccine before even the staff, from what I understand. So what made you want to talk about this one today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty hard to choose a topic that isn't COVID-related during these interesting times indeed, especially as we are in lockdown.
Well, we could, but we kind of want to talk about it a little bit.
Well, we do, because these are topics that are the most interesting right now, and these are the ones that are garnering a lot of debate and discussion.
I saw a really interesting topic the other day that, what was the girl's name from American Idol? Kelly Clarkson just relisted her house for $9 million. That was in the news. You don't think that's more interesting?
No, not really. Hey, I can't afford to buy a $9 million house, so it doesn't affect me.
Okay, go on.
But, getting back to this particular article that I saw that has been in the news over the last couple weeks. And although it is a Canadian topic, I'm sure it is also very prevalent to other countries across the world right now, because I'm sure it isn't just a Canadian-only debate. But yes, as you mentioned before, it is the debate as to whether or not prisoners should receive the COVID-19 vaccines before the rest of the general population. And the reason this has become an issue is that various prisons across Canada in multiple provinces have been provided with shipments of the Moderna vaccine. And this has occurred throughout the month of January.
Yeah.
And this has obviously created quite a bit of a debate, certainly amongst a lot of the Canadian politicians. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has come out against it. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, the opposition leader, is very much against this. But yeah, this is the fact that certain inmates have received the vaccine ahead of members of the rest of the population, meaning residents of long-term care facilities, frontline healthcare workers, other medically vulnerable people, people in senior centers. So yeah, and I'm sure that Canada is not alone in this, but obviously there's been issues over the shall we say the slow pace of the vaccine rollout. I think we were all hoping it would be a little bit more a little bit more prevalent at this point in time, considering it's been out for about 6 weeks now. We're hoping that more people would be vaccinated. So, the vaccines that have been made available throughout the month of January are obviously very precious. And yes, it does raise the question: is who gets priority? Who should be vaccinated? Who should get the vaccine first? So there's a lot of arguments against this and some for this. So let's take a look at those. As I mentioned, a lot of politicians have come out against it. Really, their main argument being is that dangerous criminals should not be vaccinated before long-term care patients.
Yeah.
So what gives these prisoners the right to be vaccinated before other people who are very much at risk?
But what about old prisoners?
Well, and I'm just going to get to that point. There is a lot of people that
or at-risk prisoners.
A lot of people that are proponents for this, saying that the fact that there has been a lot of outbreaks within the prisons, it's almost in some ways inhumane treatment. Because of the outbreaks, a lot of these prisoners are confined to their cells for up to 23 and a half hours a day.
Yeah.
So it's in many ways sort of become solitary confinement for these prisoners. Yeah, there you go. Sort of. Get rid of that. It has become solitary confinement. 23 and a half hours a day. That's a long period of time to be cramped in a cell.
That's how I feel in my basement here while I'm remote working.
There you go.
No windows. Yeah, go on.
But it should be noted that at least the article that I was reading noted that it was elderly and medically vulnerable inmates that have been targeted for receiving the vaccine. So I don't believe that it has been like a rollout across all prisons to receive vaccines. Maybe it's just being targeted. Right.
They didn't say, okay, in the order of how it's going to go, we'll do convicts, long-term care, front-of-line workers. It's not exactly that. It's not laid out like that.
Yeah. But overall, it all comes down to optics. The fact that criminals, inmates are receiving the vaccine before a lot of long-term care patients, a lot of medically vulnerable patients, frontline healthcare workers. Even the Union for the Correctional Officers has weighed in on this and has stated that the corrections officers should be vaccinated long before the inmates, because they're frontline workers. They're putting themselves at danger. So yeah, it's a huge debate right now going on as to the whole prioritization of who gets the vaccine. But I tell you, it's from an optics standpoint, it really doesn't look good when you have inmates getting vaccinated. And I do understand the reasons. I realize that yes, there are elderly and medically vulnerable inmates that when you really look at the that the criteria for those who receive the vaccines, yes, those people do make the list, but I think from an optics standpoint, when it's so fresh and new in terms of the vaccine rollout, and because there's so many issues that has plagued this rollout, it just looks really bad on the government when they're trying to justify the fact that inmates are getting these vaccines. It doesn't send a very good message to the rest of the Canadian public. So although I do see both sides to the argument, I would come out in favor of those who are against the vaccine, against the concept of providing the vaccines to the inmates. I personally don't think it should happen.
So where should they be in the... Because there's a couple of things here. You have just regular convicts or inmates who are, for the most part, healthy. But then you also have ones that are older and maybe have some pre-existing conditions that make them more susceptible to dying.
Yeah.
So there's
But those people shouldn't be prioritized over the long-term care facilities. I think when you still are having deaths at long-term care facilities, when there's still problems with outbreaks, that needs to be dealt with, beyond question, that needs to be dealt with first.
But I believe some of this has to do with also how the vaccine has been distributed among the federal jurisdiction and the provincial jurisdiction, so that if the federal government has a certain amount of doses that they would administer federally. So, for example, in these federal prisons or federal whatevers, what do? I guess the real thing is the decision could have been made in advance rather than, like I'm saying, do you go and just take all the supply from the federal government and run it out to the long-term care facilities?
So how it works then in Canada, at least, and I think it's the same for pretty much every other country, in that it's the federal government that is the recipient of the vaccines. It's the federal government that is in charge of the vaccine rollout. So it's the federal government that is giving the individual doses to the various provinces for distribution. The provinces are the ones that distribute it, but they are not the ones that receive the doses directly from the manufacturers. So in this case, because the federal government has been under a lot of criticism for the very slow pace of the vaccine rollout, I'm just saying from an optics standpoint, it looks really poor right now. I'm not arguing against the fact that, yes, at some point, sure, the elderly and medically vulnerable inmates should be on that list at some point, but I'm just thinking, well, at least in my opinion, right now, it just looks really poor from an optics standpoint to the rest of Canadians who are desperate to get the vaccines, those who have loved ones in long-term care facilities that are currently dying from COVID. It just sends a really poor message. So,
well, I guess it's not helped by the fact that the rollout has not been going very quickly or very smoothly. I think perhaps if that was going well, it wouldn't have shone a light so much on this particular issue.
Yeah, I agreed completely. That the fact that the vaccine rollout should be far ahead of the process than it is right now. The latest headlines being that I believe both Moderna and Pfizer have rolled back some of the expected vaccine shipments. So
that's exacerbated it.
Yeah, it's a very frustrating time indeed. And then, when you hear that inmates are getting vaccinated, just the headline itself, it sparks a lot of anger and debate amongst the rest of Canadians that are like, what about my mom who's in a long-term care facility? Yeah. What about her? How come she is the back of the line type of thing? So, yeah, this is one of those headlines that, really jumps out at you. And at first glance, it's like, whoa, what the heck is this?
You think about murderers and rapists getting the vaccine ahead of grandma in the long-term care facility. Absolutely, I can see it getting people up in arms. But there is a humane aspect to this. That you're in jail, but these are fellow human beings and they should be looked after. But I don't think the website here, I was just on the Canada.ca website, doesn't do any favors to this. It says here, groups that will get the vaccine first: residents and staff of shared living settings who provide care for seniors, adults 70 years of age and older, healthcare workers who have direct contact with patients, including those who work in healthcare settings, personal support workers, adults in Indigenous communities. Then it says, as additional COVID-19 vaccines and supplies become available, the following populations should be offered vaccinations: healthcare workers not included in the initial rollout, residents and staff of all other shared living settings, such as homeless shelters, correctional facilities, housing for migrant workers. So here you are. The words, they say, as additional vaccines and supplies become available, the following populations should be offered vaccinations. They are not in the first tier of vaccination priority, yet we are seeing examples of it happening.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think that document kind of speaks volumes to the fact that
document speaks volumes.
Yes, it does. Well, no, it right there on paper, it states that correctional inmates.
You said kind of earlier, so that's why I repeated it without your kind of.
Okay.
I'm counting, Paul. I'm counting them.
No, you got the check marks going there.
The listeners are counting too.
Yeah. No, but I was saying that the document that you just read off there acknowledges the fact that inmates in correctional facilities are further down that list, yet somehow they have been prioritized somewhat.
It's logistics.
Yes, these individuals. Yeah, it's obviously I realize that it's a monumental task, the whole vaccine rollout, and there's going to be a lot of debate going on for several months before there's enough vaccines that the general population starts to get access to it. But yeah, I don't think this debate's going to be going away anytime soon. But yeah, we've got another topic. It's COVID related. This was another one that caught our interest, and this has to do with the new travel restrictions that have been imposed.
Yep.
And as mentioned, it's tough to not find a topic that is related to COVID-19 these days, but again, these are the topics that are sparking a lot of debate and interest amongst people. And
not the very least of which are our listeners.
Yeah.
But don't you? I think listeners love to be told what they are interested in. Mm-hmm. We may be making some assumptions, but we're going with it anyway. Yeah, they've updated the restrictions on travel. A lot of people would say this is a long time coming. There was a whole, in the month of, I guess, late December, there was a big controversy around some politicians that had been traveling and came under fire for traveling when we were in a lockdown. We were in a lockdown at the later part of December, yet a number of politicians, it came to light, were traveling. And then they actually, I saw statistics, I think it said 1 million people traveled over the Christmas holidays. So there's clearly a reason to crack down on travel. And this in particular, do you have the list there of the different restrictions that...
Yeah, so within Canada, the new restrictions actually take into effect today, being January 31st. The new rules is that travelers coming back into Canada need to have a COVID test done upon arrival.
Yep.
They are still subject to the 14-day quarantine.
They don't have to get a test before they leave, do they? I'm sure they don't.
I'm not... No, I think that the fact that they get a COVID test upon arrival, I think that has now replaced it. I think previously they had to get a COVID test 3 days prior to their flight. But the problem is that a lot of people were still contracting the COVID-19 within that 3 day at the airport,
on the
or
way
within
to
that
the
3 day
airport,
period.
in the taxi, the day before, the day after they got the test. Yeah.
So I think that was probably the issue that was causing a lot of COVID outbreaks from international travelers, is because, this clean COVID test that one had in hand arriving at the airport really was meaningless because it didn't reflect the current state of their medical condition at that point.
Well, and I've heard that a few times, that people I know who get COVID tests quite regularly, like those in the film industry. I have a friend, Mike, he's been on our show a couple times, that he can come over and say, well, I just got the results of my COVID test that I had yesterday and it was free, so I'm good to go. Who says? Maybe you got it on your way back home from the test.
Exactly. The COVID-19 tests are only a snapshot in time. By the time you get your results, which may be a day, 2, 3 days later, a lot has happened since then. But yeah, getting back to these new restrictions, so yes, they have to get a COVID test upon arrival, and the new thing now is that you have to spend up to 3 days of your 14-day quarantine in a designated hotel, and this can cost upwards of up to $2,000. So I think that the government has imposed this to, first of all, discourage people from doing international travel, because you're right, this has been a debate that's been going on a lot especially over the last 6 weeks or so in around Christmas. A lot of people have been, ignoring the rules and flying away over Christmas time or various sunny destinations during the month of January. And it has to stop, because especially now because of the new, I believe it's the new UK variant, and then I think there's a South African variant as well. So that we're not out of the woods yet in terms of our COVID numbers. We're still in a dangerous position where it is very irresponsible to have that international travel when this has been something that has been repeated over and over and over again for months. This isn't anything new, yet people still continue to travel. And it's still one of the main reasons why there is still a lot of outbreaks and new strains that are
new
spreading
strains, I
across
think,
Canada.
yes, but I did hear something that said that travel is fairly minor in terms of the way this is being transmitted.
But the thing is that the new strains create more outbreaks because it's so contagious.
Yep. Agreed. And I wanted to see about the $2,000 thing, because my thinking was they were going to announce a list of hotels apparently that qualify as places that you can go in quarantine. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe they'll have a list from everything from the Ritz-Carlton down to like a chain, like a budget hotel, a Days Inn, or
stay at the Haven app for $50 a night.
$20 an hour.
Yeah, who knows? Like, it just says it could be up to $2,000.
But I'm reading here that it says that this is actually designed to curtail the travel or discourage the travel by making it expensive. So they must have said, okay, you can travel, but you have to stay at a government-approved facility, and it's going to cost you $2,000 Canadian, according to this, to do it.
Okay.
So I think that will be much more of a deterrent than fishing around for the best hotel rate, which is what 90% of people would probably do, is find the cheapest possibility. I agree with this. I think that we need to just put a halt on travel. I know that there are folks out there who have loved ones who live abroad, and it's tough. I can only imagine what it would be like to have a relative that is in another country, or your mom or your dad. They're maybe in the last weeks of life, and I get it. But I think that's part of what we all have to do here is, if we're going to travel, they're not saying you can't. They're just saying it has to be done under these circumstances. And I think it's the right thing to be doing.
Well, you raise a good point in that, yes, there are exceptions to travel if you're dealing with a sick relative or something of that nature. Yes, there are exceptions to certain rules. But what I think this is really targeting is the whole snowbirds. And those who are non-Canadians. I was just going to say we should define what a Canadian snowbird is to those who are not from Canada. A snowbird is someone that vacations to sunny destinations
or
during
lives
the wintertime.
somewhere.
Or lives somewhere, yeah. So that a lot of people spend their winters in Florida, in the Caribbean, down in Mexico. So a lot of retirees will rent condos and spend a couple of weeks, even a couple of months during the winter months to escape the weather.
Yeah, especially now. If I guess a lot of retirees aren't changing their way of working as much, but Now is
Yeah.
a great time because you can be anywhere almost, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, the reason this caught my interest is because I was looking at a CBC article about the headlines being Canadian snowbirds abroad grapple with tough new travel rules that include a big hotel bill. And basically it's talking about how these snowbirds who are there just for vacation, so this is just for leisure only,
Yeah.
are complaining that they're now going to be subject to this $2,000 hotel bill upon their arrival back in Canada. And my reaction to that is too bad.
Yeah.
This
is too bad.
It is, because I don't have sympathy for people that have made that decision to travel outside of the country for leisure reasons, and now they're complaining about it up to a $2,000 hotel bill. You know what? If that is a deterrent to make people think twice about leaving the country for vacation, especially as we're coming up to March break and everything, then yeah, this is what we should be doing. And I should also add that a lot of Canada's major airlines have canceled all flights to Mexico and the Caribbean beginning today, being January 31st, all the way through to April 30th.
Gosh, I'm sure they're happy about that.
Yeah. But I find it unusual that there are still flights.
Yeah.
That there's, even though there's been a lot of travel bans, that there's still people flying in and out of various destinations. And yeah, I was surprised to find out how many snowbirds are still outside of the country right now. And yeah, if you need to vacation that bad, then hey, I guess it's a free country. You can do what you want, but don't come looking to me for sympathy. Why should the taxpayers be responsible for your healthcare costs if you contract COVID-19 vacationing down in Florida, and then you come back to Ontario with the virus and you spread it to other people, or you end up getting hospitalized? Why should we be responsible, or why should we be exposed to these individuals that could potentially be spreading COVID-19? If you're traveling, then you're on your own. You got to be able to take that risk.
These are unprecedented times, and everybody's going to have to make sacrifices. And
absolutely,
this is part of that. This is part of that. It's just simple as that.
Trust me, I love my vacations. If it wasn't for COVID, I would probably be down in Florida right now. Yeah. So I get it. I get the desire to want to travel, and it really it's tough not going away this winter, but that's the sacrifices we make. That's doing your part to stop the spread of COVID, is self-isolating, reducing your contact with people, and that includes not taking vacations. Agreed. Simple as that. Well, so these people that are taking these vacations, why do they have this sense of entitlement that they still deserve to go away to Florida when everybody else is making these sacrifices?
This episode is brought to you by Pace Painting. Pace Painting, serving all your painting needs, whether commercial or residential. Reach Pace Painting at paintwithpace@gmail.com or via their Facebook page, Pace Painting Inc. Or call Peter at 289-356-7744. Paint with Pace. Something else I want to talk about as we ease away from the COVID topic, but not quite totally away from it. Recently, I've noticed that when I call customer service, there's two things I want to address here, actually. Let me address the COVID piece first. Is this catch-all phrase now that I'm hearing when I call customer service, whether it's about my internet service or my heating bill, whatever, I'll call and I'll get the message that we are currently experiencing higher volumes of calls right now due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very common.
What does that mean exactly?
I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know what that means.
That held water back in April and May. It doesn't hold water anymore for me. Okay, now I guess...
Well, yeah, we're almost a year into this now. Why are you still experiencing a higher than normal call volumes? But they say that all the time.
If they said that we're short-staffed due to COVID-19, that might be a little bit more understandable, but we are experiencing a high volume of calls due to the COVID-19 vaccine, or the COVID-19 issue. I just think it's a too easy an excuse right now to make up for poor customer service or long hold times.
Especially when you're dialing into something that has nothing to do with COVID-19. Like you're dialing into your internet provider, or you're calling Lowe's customer service or something like that. Something that really shouldn't, at this stage of the game, really shouldn't be affected with COVID at this point.
I think it's just too blanket a statement to say it. Due to COVID-19, expect that our service is going to be shit.
Yeah.
And that's okay because of
Pretty
COVID,
much.
because of COVID.
Yeah, because of COVID. Hey, we can make that excuse for no matter what. Hey, if you don't like this podcast, it's because of COVID, right?
That's if you find this podcast has been of lower quality than normal, blame COVID-19.
Yes, there you go. That's
All
our
right.
excuse for everything.
But
You had another one, though.
Yes.
You had another pet peeve about that, right?
I do. It also is in the customer service category. When did we suddenly opt in to having our phone calls to customer service be recorded for quality and training purposes? When did that ever happen? Was there it seemed to me, and where this comes from is when you call customer service and you get the message that this call may be recorded for quality and training purposes. Well, not only that's how it used to be, now it's actually morphing into this call will be used for quality and training purposes. And I'm thinking, what if I don't want it to be?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because even before you had proposed the idea of this as a discussion piece for our podcast, I was subconsciously thinking about that the other day, and I think it was maybe Bell that I was calling up, and yeah, you're right, that catch-all phrase where this call will be recorded for training and customer service purposes or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's quality and training.
And at that, I remember thinking to myself, for that half second there, really, it's I don't have a choice in this. Like it will be recorded.
I think there should be please press 1 if you do not wish to be recorded. I think there should be some type of opt-out for that. That's a privacy issue, I think, I believe.
Just going to say that, yeah. Yeah, no, it is a privacy issue, because what if you don't want your conversation to be recorded? So by saying that you are doing it for training and customer service purposes, that they
quality
have that
and training
right now, or quality and training purposes, that they have that right to record your conversation.
And you know exactly why they're recording it.
Well, what do you think?
Oh, it's so that they can say, well, sir, we have a recording of you saying you asked for this extra package on your cable plan. That's what it's for.
Yeah,
so that's quality in their mind. The quality that when you told us something you wanted and now you're saying you didn't, well, we can ensure the quality of our service by letting you hear yourself say, yeah, I'll take the movie pack tier 3 option. Now what are you going to do, sir? You're lying to us.
Yeah, I'm going to play it back, you son of a bitch.
Well, the other thing I imagine too was that if they say training purposes, I totally imagine, I have a call with these guys and it goes totally sideways. And then 3 months later, there's some sort of a training going on where they said, okay, now we'd like you to listen to the following call. Please let us know where the customer service rep went wrong. And that would be my call with the security guy or the internet provider, and they say, well, what would you have done in this situation? So I'm like a guinea pig for the customer service. I'm like a medical, what do you call it? I've donated my body of customer experience to science.
You'll be the person that is being labeled as the belligerent or unruly customer that features within their training videos, but
never.
I guess to our initial point, though, where in our opinion, and I'm sure we're not alone in this, that customer service in general has declined throughout COVID. Yet here we are, they're talking about training and quality purposes. But gee, it really doesn't seem to be reflecting in the final product now, does it?
All right, let's lighten it up. I've got some weird news here.
All right. Let's hear it.
This one comes from Ripley's.com, which is a source that I've never found before. It's never come up on my radar, but a couple of interesting stories that I found. Scottish town pleads for return of beloved police mannequin.
Police mannequin?
Yeah, Scottish town is in a right state since their beloved road safety officer and mannequin Alan disappeared Saturday afternoon. Residents of Braemar are pleading for the return of Alan, who has been doing his due diligence to remind drivers to slow down through the village of, probably going to pronounce it wrong, Aberdeenshire for the past 2 months. So this mannequin sits in front of like the welcome to the town. It says it warns speeders approaching the village, but locals have been left stunned by his disappearance. Apparently, this mannequin has been kidnapped.
Why would anyone want that?
Oh, come on.
I guess it's
there's lots of weird folks out there, A, that think this is funny, and B, God only knows what they want that mannequin for. But a mannequin in a police uniform? Whew. Paul, there's lots of potential there.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah. You'd like to think that it's probably just a bunch of pranksters. But yeah, I guess it's sort of like a beloved mascot, especially if it's sort of a mascot of this little. You said it's Scotland, right?
He's not little. Oh yeah, it's a town in Scotland. It's a village.
Yeah, the little town, this little village. It's like almost like a tourist attraction.
Could be. Could be.
Drive by the sort of like little towns out in the prairies, the world's biggest ball of yarn, that type of thing. Maybe this police mannequin is this town's claim to fame. Who knows?
Another story here. Oklahoma bill calls for open season on Sasquatch.
Okay.
Oklahoma State Representative Justin Humphrey has introduced a new hunting bill that would establish an open season for tracking down the state's most elusive creature, Bigfoot. Humphrey's bill calls on Oklahoma Wildlife Commission to declare an official Bigfoot hunting season with specific dates and corresponding licenses and fees. Southern Oklahoma is known for the legendary Sasquatch's sightings and even hosts an annual Bigfoot festival for enthusiasts to unite. Well, if you kill the thing, you're going to lose all that tourism money, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. That could be a whole podcast topic in itself, the whole debate about does Bigfoot really exist. I had no idea that there was Bigfoot sightings down in Oklahoma. I always thought it was in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
So yeah, this is traveling. Definitely yes, apparently. This is a topic I would not have expected, certainly not out of Oklahoma. I don't know, this could be an idea to maybe create tourism.
Right.
The fact that you want hunters to come to Oklahoma and
good time to be doing that.
Yeah, spend their money, let's spread the virus, that type of thing. It's very unusual, but yeah, you're right. If you find Bigfoot, then the mystery might be solved, and then what do you do? I guess you put him on display and make a museum, and then you get more tourists coming in. Maybe that's the idea.
Yeah, I guess if they're charging license fees for this, it'd be interesting to know how many people actually purchase one.
Yeah.
All right, final weird news story. This one comes from my previous country of residency, Japan, which has no shortage of strange news or weird news stories. Okay, so Japanese entrepreneur wants to analyze your BO.
Man, that sounds like a pretty stinky job.
That's funny.
Sorry, had to be said.
A Japanese entrepreneur has now made it possible to send your sweat for a personalized stink analysis. Often too busy to bathe or change clothes during his grad school days, Shota Ishida took his personal experience to the lab. Realizing that he wouldn't necessarily get the truth from his friends if he asked them about his odor, Ishida was inspired to create a body odor analysis method to give others obsessed with their scent peace of mind from straight facts.
Okay, so let me get this straight. This analysis is to determine whether or not you smell or not?
Yeah. Okay. Apparently, he says, according to Ishida, and I don't know what his research, where he got this from, he says 1% of the Japanese population has anxiety associated with their body odor.
here's a better idea. Why don't you just take a shower? Hop in the shower for 2 minutes. Nobody can be that busy to not be able to take a shower.
Well, some people do have body odor no matter how hard they shower. There's some medical issues at hand in some cases. But this is the real reason for this is the concreteness of the analysis. So it could put people at ease when they actually get some type of scientific answers, like he says, straight facts.
Okay, so does this analysis include any kind of medical information? Like if
Yes.
you're receiving... Okay, so maybe that's a bit of a different story that we have to analyze here, is that if you're getting like a medical analysis, because I know that a lot of, obviously body fluids can be used for determining, as I said, obviously health parameters. But if there's a medical reason for this, then okay, maybe.
Not sure if there's a medical reason, but there's a medical procedure. So this guy he teamed up with a chemist friend and spent $50,000 for a second-hand gas chromatography mass spectrometer, or a GCMS for short. This technology is known as the gold standard for identifying chemical substances and is used heavily in episodes of CSI and real-life forensics. So let me explain how this thing works. So the client receives a white T-shirt coated in activated charcoal, wears it for 24 hours, drops it in the mail, and Ishida gets to work. The result is an analysis of the key offenders in their odor, focusing on 25 of the most pungent compounds that make up a person's scent. Okay,
so could that be influenced by diet or by the amount of fluids that you drink?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it'll give you any answers around that. Here's why you smell like this. I think it's $150. And you get this analysis, I guess, that says here's what you smell like. And actually, he uses some descriptions in here. It's 25 of the most pungent organic compounds that make up each individual smell profile, including, for example, diacetyl, which is blamed for back of the head odor, and nonenal, which is associated with old age smell.
There is such a thing, right?
So he'll actually send a printout to you that will say whether your odor falls within the normal range or not. But then he also carries out a low-tech sniff test for the underarms, collar area, and back, and offers helpful descriptors such as oily, gamey, like onions starting to rot. These are descriptors that he would provide to say, okay, your back smells like onions starting to rot, or your armpits smell gamey.
Okay, so I question this on a couple of different, his business model. First of all, $150, that's a lot. I don't picture, I could be wrong, but I don't picture a lot of people spending $150 for sweat analysis. But okay, so if you're mailing in a sweaty T-shirt, keep in mind that obviously a sweaty T-shirt is going to stink a lot more if it's been sitting around for a few days. For both of us, we like to run. Obviously, we have sweaty T-shirts after we're done our runs.
Yeah, but I don't think he's saying take this shirt and run in it or exercise. I think you just put it on and wear it. Like me, I'm wearing a white T-shirt right now. I think you just wear it for 24 hours. I don't think you're supposed to do anything too crazy with it. You just wear it like you would a normal shirt.
All right. So in other words, if you smell gamey after 24 hours of just regular activity,
right,
then maybe that's an issue. Okay.
And to your question about who would be interested, it says he's sold more than 1,000 kits, and he supplements his revenue by consulting for makers of odor treatment products. He's about to launch a new armpit-only analysis kit and is weighing a halitosis rating service too. That's for breath. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he also offers face-to-face consultation, by the way. And at the end of the meeting, at one meeting he had with a face-to-face person, he said that the person grabbed his hand in gratitude, and actually in Japan, shaking hands isn't as common. So he said he was quite stunned to see someone so happy to get this his services that they actually shook his hand.
Interesting. Wow, he's found a real niche market. And
Yeah.
it's not for the faint of heart. You got to have a tough nose for that kind of business. But hey, good on him. If he's making money out of something that can be pretty stinky but fits a need.
Main clientele includes 30 women in their 30s and 40s. I'll finish up just with that. But they say that parents often buy the kit for their teenagers. For most of my adult clients, their anxiety begins in school and then dogs them throughout their lives, holding them back in their careers and even in romance. So if we can nip this in the bud early, it's great. Okay, Paul, we've covered a lot of ground here. Tried to cover some of the more serious issues and some of the more comical ones in the episode. And until next time.
Yeah, this has been an episode that we've covered a lot of information on. I know I will view my sweat and my my body odor a lot differently from now on.
Yeah, I just got 12 more hours with this white shirt. Then I got to throw it in the mail and wait for the results.
There you go. Let me know how it goes.